how do we expect employees to be able to meet the passing criteria for things like phishing simulations if we haven't given them a chance to properly absorb and practice what we're trying to teach them? So in this session of the Live Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, our panel is going to dig into exercising employees' security awareness skills versus testing them. We'll talk a little bit about each area, but I think there's kind of a gap. This is a really important topic for me in particular. So I hope you'll stay with us and participate in the chat, and love to hear everybody's opinions on this topic. So welcome to the Live Cybersecurity Awareness Forum. It's the open collaboration group for anyone who's passionate about security awareness. I'm Scott Wright, the CEO and Chief Engagement Officer at ClickArmor. And this is session number 36 for January 24th, 2024, I believe. And as usual, I'm joined with a fantastic group of panelists, whom I will introduce in a moment. But first, I do want to let you know that this session is brought to you by ClickArmor, the first interactive security training platform designed specifically to make remediation, role-based security training, and custom security training easy and effective. So if you want better engagement, better completion rates, and a better security culture, you really need ClickArmor to do that for you. In certain ways, we're going to talk about one of the gaps that we can help with ClickArmor in this session. So for those of you who haven't attended, just a few housekeeping details. I'm going to share my screen now because I forgot to do that at the beginning, and we'll get things going here. So yeah, in this session, we are talking about the exercising of employee security skills. But what we do with each of these sessions is we record them, we take the transcripts, we create blog posts out of them. We actually create YouTube shorts, and we save the recorded video. We post it in our community, which is the cybersecurityawarenessforum.com website. And you'll see a few links to it here in the session, and you can get it from me later as well. So before I go on into our first poll, another couple of things we want to actually do is talk to you about the fact that this, as I said, is being recorded. And because we have so much content created out of this, not only do we want you to participate live now with the chat, I'm getting people to practice using the chat by typing in where they're coming from. It's my secret plan. And then when we actually publish this information on the community site, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, love if you could share it to help others learn from what we've discussed. So now I'm going to introduce our panel for today. So we have Erin Gallagher, who's been working in the security awareness field for 5 years, and she's helped to build programs for companies ranging from 1,200 employees to 500,000. Erin has a true passion for maintaining the human connection in all things security and awareness. Thanks for joining us, Erin. Sid is currently head of IT at Greenpeace Canada and studying for his CISP. I wonder when he's going to pass that. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he'll give us an update on it. He's worked in the nonprofit and corporate sectors and ran his own IT services business for over 15 years. We have Thea Mannix, who is a behavioral neuroscientist with over 10 years of experience in studying how the biology of our brains can influence our behavior. And it's really valuable to hear Thea's insights in these sessions too. Her current role is as Director of Research for Praxis Security Labs, and is now working on applying experience to cybersecurity scenarios around the human element. So I think we don't have anybody else who would plan to be on the panel. So I'll introduce myself. I'm the CEO and Chief Engagement Officer at ClickArmor, Scott Wright, and started this series of sessions about 1.5 years ago. This is our 37th, I think it is. And I just feel like we have a really good community of people who really care about doing security awareness properly and effectively and helping each other. So I think we're getting really good response from these sessions, good growing participation. So just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. I'm going to just do a quick check of our roll call to see where people are coming from today. We've got Denmark. Thanks very much, Sarah, for joining us from Denmark. Greater Toronto area. Not only is Sid in Toronto, but Kim is also. Dan from Manhattan, Steve from Jacksonville, Sarah, as I said, from Denmark. We have Monica from Toronto, from Longford, Ireland. That's where Thea is today, I think. Saskatoon, another beautiful place in Canada, London, Georgia, and Ohio. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you posting where you're coming from. So today's session is going to be interesting. I'm going to start, usually I start with a bit of context from my own experience and try and set, the level for everybody to understand where we're coming from. But this time I'm actually going to start with a poll question. And I'm just going to get this going if I can. One sec here. I'm going to allow the panelists to vote as well. So the question we're asking is, do you feel like your organization's awareness program provides sufficient support for employees to learn and practice your training content before doing assessments like phishing simulations? So this will be an interesting question because this goes to the root of the area where I think we have a gap, but would love to hear people's ideas on it because a lot of people do feel that they've got everything covered, and I want to hear from them about how they did that and how successful they've been. So I'm going to let that poll run for a few minutes, and then I'll go into my little discussion around the exercising of skills. So I call this slide the anatomy of an education process, at least the parts that we talk about. So generally, when we talk about a security awareness training program, most often we're just saying, okay, we got to get the notifications out, let people know when they got to start, when they should finish it by. Then people actually, hopefully, go in and consume that content. And then we hope a few other things happen. But at the end of it, usually we just talk about, was the training launched? Did people finish it? And how did they do? And so when you look at it from that perspective, you're saying, okay, well, what are all these things that should be happening here? Well, I would like to propose that there are probably many more things if you break it down even further. But from my point of view, we need people to understand that content that we've asked them to do. And when they go in and enter into the program and turn on the videos and do the quizzes, we think they're understanding, or we hope they're understanding, but we don't know. And not only do they have to understand, they need to retain that knowledge. Does it just go in one ear and out the other? Did they run the video and go have a coffee and come back? And then we have a question of, are they actually ready to take that formal assessment? And so I put in red below some of the things that we expect from our current sort of traditional methods. So the expectation of the content consumption when people take the training is that they will understand it and hopefully they will retain the knowledge. But then I'll often rely on the phishing simulations and other assessments to kind of keep that reminder going to have them retain knowledge. And from that, we expect that they're ready for the next one. And that's kind of the model that I put together. Of course, we know that if we learn stuff from that assessment that maybe people aren't doing so well, we may have to change content or revise the program, change who gets what. So that's sort of my view of the process that I think we're expecting to happen and how we might actually see those things happening. What I wanted to inject here was just my thoughts on one of the reasons why I built ClickArmor was to try and address things in a more inclusive and actually more detailed way. So we're actually hoping that people will be able to do interactive learning and commit to memory some of the things that they've actually consumed. And then we want to be able to reinforce that knowledge, have them do self-assessments so that they understand how well they're doing. They may have high confidence before you do a phishing test, and then their confidence is blown away afterwards. So I want to build that confidence before we do the phishing tests so that they are actually ready. And then we can do more immersive tests as well as just the live tests, which has advantages in terms of costs and other things that we can manipulate more easily in an immersive environment than we can in a live environment. So that's my whole picture in a nutshell. And so hoping that people will have filled in the poll, and I will have a look at that. All the poll questions we'll look at a little bit later. So now I'm going to turn to the general questions, the open questions for the panel. And as we have, 4 or 5 panelists, I'm going to ask that the panelists raise your hand if you've got an immediate comment or something you want to speak to. And if there are no hands up, I'll pick somebody with no mercy and ask them to put their comment in. So I'll stop my sharing, but the question here is, what situations do you think employees could be given more chances to learn and practice before they're being tested? So do we have anybody who wants to take that question first? We don't have anybody with hands up, so I'm going to call on Sid and say, Sid, do you have any thoughts on this particular question? What situations could people be tested more with?
Specifically, I've got people who send me requests asking whether something is phishing or is it malware of some sort, and they don't realize what happens when you have something like a PDF inside an email or a text message or something. And I've had specific people who don't know that just by opening and the attachment, it could run a script. So they have already opened that PDF. Luckily, there was an endpoint detection and response on their computer. But if they had known, if somebody had gone and explained all of this first, they wouldn't have done that thing. So if we had tested them on such a thing, they would have had they wouldn't have had a clue.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Erin, you had a comment?
I was just going to add, and I'm not putting myself out there to say I have any solutions for this at the moment. But I want to make the argument that every situation is a learning opportunity and a test. And it's not necessarily, I know we talk a lot about phishing. Again, if you haven't heard it from me before, my company does not do phishing simulations at the moment. But so we don't necessarily have a great situation to be testing employees on. So we have to take every opportunity when an incident happens or somebody reaches out to us as both an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to see that our employees are being tested. Is it in a safe environment? No. But is it a real environment both for the person being targeted and for our security teams? Absolutely. So it's, every chance you have, every situation that arises is an opportunity to learn. So, what situations should employees be given more chances to learn and practice before being tested? Every opportunity. And it's an ongoing process, and the security awareness field is in for the long game, not the short game. So you can always throw in little tests. You can always, give those metrics to the board, to your senior leadership. But the real test here is, are we seeing a, decrease in incidents? Are we seeing more people report those incidents to us? So it's an ongoing process, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thea.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think everything can be a learning opportunity, and I think it's such a great mindset when you have senior people in security in an organization actually thinking of it like that. I think it's really positive. So something that from a neuroscience perspective, I think people get very confused between rote learning. So I know what that word means in the sense that I can say to you, what is X? And they will give me the correct response, and them actually understanding what that is and how that actually interacts with other things. So I feel like, a lot of people go through security awareness training, and you can say to them like, oh, this is a hoobaloo, and they go, okay. And you say, what is this? It's a hoobaloo. 1 point. Great. But they don't actually know what it does or what their role is as well, what their role is when they interact with that. So it's not just about learning and testing. It's also about, as you said, it's readiness. It's how do I use this? What is this relevant to me? What does it actually do? The actual label is kind of irrelevant. It could be anything, you know what I mean? So I think, yeah, taking focus off technical terminology and actually turning that into something where people are like, okay, I'm using it, you know, and this is what it does, rather than I know what it's called.
Yeah, absolutely. Erin, did you have a follow-up on that, or?
Yeah, it's funny because I just had a one-on-one with my manager today, and I think I used almost some of the exact verbiage in that conversation where we're trying to do our best to come away from some of this blanket training for the organization, and take some of the higher risk and higher targeted groups and create tailored training for them that is just more applicable for what they do in their day-to-day function. And one of the modules I wanted to make was a quiz at the end, but I didn't want it to be necessarily a pass-fail opportunity. I wanted it to be as an incident that might have happened, and we walk through the incident and people kind of choose your own adventure here on what you think would be the right response for something like this. What do you think you should do in this situation? Giving them more applicable testing. So I guess where I'm trying to go with this is not only should we think about, you know, what chances there are to learn or how many chances we should get before we test them, but how are we actually testing our employees? Are we, like Thea said, are we just doing it based on strict knowledge? Like, I know what did we call it? A hoobaloo?
A hoobaloo. I know what a
I love
hoobaloo
it.
is.
Okay. It's great if you know what a hoobaloo is, but if that situation comes up in a real scenario, do you know how to walk yourself through that process? So we should really be thinking not just when to test, but how and why we're testing too. Not quite part of the question, but it really sparked a good thought, Thea.
Yeah, and we're getting some great comments too from the chat. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to keep up with them all, but Sid also has a comment, and I'll get back to the chat in a moment. Sid, did you have another comment?
Yeah, just to round this out, what we're doing in Greenpeace is we've set up a SOAR, security orchestration and response. So people are able to report phishing, and we want them to do this. We encourage it and ask questions on Slack about, you know, every single thing. We don't care about a false positive. And just talking about it, every opportunity being you know, a way to, and I don't like to think of it as a test, but, you know, some as an opportunity to learn. So in the store, they can, if they report something, they are given the opportunity to find out more about it, about what they are reporting. The library of videos or like interactive things they can go and do. And this is compiled along with logs from Cloudflare and different things. So I find that is an automated way of constant continuous improvement.
Yeah, good point. And I think also just want to go back to the chat, and there's a lot of good comments here. So Kim says, you know, just because it's available doesn't mean that people take advantage of the training. And often we might not have to check additional resources. I'm not exactly clear on what that means, but I think it could mean partly because there's so much time pressure on everybody. They want to get things done as quickly as they can. And if something doesn't quite make sense, are they going to go off and research it, or are they just going to stop? Sorry, I just knocked out my network cable. But I think yeah, generally that impression is interesting because it's the time pressure and lack of resources, you know, that people generally have overall. But we should be encouraging them within that training program and in ongoing assessments. There's another comment I think from I think Brian or Oladell that says, you know, you need to get them out of that mentality of just doing one-time training and make sure that people have an expectation that they need to be participating in those reminder sessions and things that we are giving them as a chance to have more knowledge retention and be ready. So unfortunately, I'm not going to go through all the comments, but there's a lot of really good ones here today. So I might paste them up in the recorded view so people can actually see them later. But any other final thoughts? I guess I will just move on to the next part of our presentation. And there we go. Yeah, so I mean, it's fairly timely because I wanted to just highlight the fact that in the ClickArmor product, as I said, I built the product to address this specific kind of gap that between the training that we expect people to take and pay attention to and learn from, and the assessments that we do, we really do need to provide more opportunities for people to learn, retain knowledge, and practice and be ready. And so we built the ClickArmor platform to be highly interactive. And that means things like you see here, which is just a couple of animated GIFs from our phishing simulation exercises, which can be done as either self-assessments, so only the employee really cares about the results of it, and they learn from the immediate feedback, or you can use it as set it up to be a final assessment so you can actually get a profile of how the whole organization is able to respond to multiple types of phishing messages that may come at them. So we could do this on a quarterly basis. That's the approach that we try to do here. And then we could also do weekly or monthly little engagements like those interactive things that you're seeing, so that it does put people through a scenario. Maybe it's the MGM Resorts breach or something like that, to just sort of help them understand the steps of what was happening and what they might want to do if they're in the middle of that. So if you want to learn any more about the ClickArmor platform and how we do these things, I'm happy to have a call. You can reach out to myself or Ryan, or just go to our website at clickarmor.ca. So thanks for bearing with me on that. I'm going to go to our next poll question, which is sort of a laundry list of things. We're going to say, in which we sort of covered a little bit earlier, what things do we think people need more practice at? But specifically in terms of what types of attacks do we think it would be useful for people to have that kind of regular re-engagement, to say, let's practice a couple of phishing messages, let's practice some SMS attacks or voicemail scams, things like that. So I'm interested in hearing how important you think each of these things would be from that point of view, how we can actually exercise people. And if you have other ideas, just type in the chat, start with attacks as a prefix so we can spot that it's one of the other suggestions that you have. Okay, so we'll let that one run for a little bit. And the next question we're going to ask people in the panel and anybody who wants to comment on is, why do employees receive so little time to exercise the skills that we want them to learn? Anybody have any thoughts on what's causing, this gap? Okay, we got some volunteers here. Thea, how about you go first?
I have some thoughts on this, and I think the problem is that we have a compliance-based approach to human factors. We're not interested in teaching people. We're interested in ticking a box that we need to tick in order to achieve our insurance quota or whatever the hell it is. Now, the thing is, that is not the fault of security professionals. That is the fault of a system that makes security professionals so overwhelmed with the amount of stuff and work that they have to do, and they have to fight so hard for every little bit of money that they get from the company to implement these things. And they're also dealing with the technical side of things. So I think that's the root of the problem. I'm not trying to bully cybersecurity professionals here. I don't think it's their fault, but I think there is a compliance spin on everything, rather than we're not trying to teach people. I just want to say that I did my best to teach you. So if something goes wrong, it wasn't my fault.
Yep. And I'd just like to follow up on that before I turn it over to Erin. I think that mentality, I mean, really, there's no other way to say it, but it's from the top down, right? I mean, the top management have the responsibility for allocating enough resources to secure the things that you're trying to actually provide as services and products. And in the Canadian government, there are policies and standards that say part of the responsibility of a business manager in the government who's running a program, who wants an IT system to support it, they have to allocate enough resources, funding, and people to make sure that that program is secure. And that's really the mentality that every business should have when it comes to security. You should allocate some percentage that is fair to make sure that all of these things are getting secured properly. It does hit the bottom line, but on the other hand, not as hard as if you have a breach and you have a whole bunch of unplanned costs, right? So that's my view on it. Yeah, Erin.
I want to say, Thea, that is a fantastic point. Just being in the compliance mindset, and that, Scott, like you said, it's a top-down approach. And that being said, I have 2 points. That being said, it really does need to be a mind change shift in how we're thinking. So if you are listening or watching to this call, as somebody who is a security leader, knowing that you're not going to have perfection, and going back to the point that this is going to be an ongoing process and you're in it for the long game. So having tick boxes to say you did something might make you feel good, but it's not necessarily going to mean that anything effective has actually happened. And you might need to relinquish some control over those tick boxes and understand and remember that measuring human behavior is a really complex thing to try to capture. It is so heavily reliant on quality and not quantity that it can make it challenging for somebody who is in leadership, who wants metrics, who wants numbers, to understand that sometimes the numbers you're not going to see are how many incidents didn't happen because something, because of our training, because of our work in security awareness. Even if an incident does happen, is the response time a lot faster because our people know how to reach out to the security teams to help remediate the issue? But to answer the question myself, I was going to say too that employees nobody has time. They don't have enough time. A lot of organizations who don't necessarily have a security awareness dedicated person or team, they don't have time. Nobody has time to give to this ongoing training and help sprinkle security into everyday practices versus the compliance focused mindset. So we need to shift the entire way of thinking about security awareness and allow somebody to have the time to do tailored training or to do ongoing sessions that may not always have a perfect action item to come out of it, but gets people interested, gets people exploring, and gets people knowing their contacts in their organization.
Yeah, for sure. Monica just made a great point in terms of, our reactive sort of mindset that we have. A lot of times the training is very light until you have a breach, and then all of a sudden it gets very detailed. And, it's too bad you didn't get that ahead of time. But it's just like your home security systems. I mean, everybody kind of has them now in urban areas, but in, the 80s and 90s or 2000s even, nobody had a security system until they actually got robbed. And all of a sudden you put it in place. So it's sad that that seems to be the natural mentality that we have, but the whole point of our collaboration here together is to try and raise that awareness and make sure that people are thinking more proactively about what we should be doing to really save money in the long run for our businesses and also make it a healthier workplace. Sid.
So I was quite shocked when I first started creating a cybersecurity roadmap for us, that first of all, we didn't have an organized a cybersecurity plan, and there was no thought of cybersecurity training at all. It wasn't a priority, and it's already been covered that until something happens, there's nobody wants to actually deal with any of these things. And there is compliance for us, PCI and certain other things, but that's it. So I think in dealing with this effectively, there has to be a buy-in from top down. There has to be, the value has to be seen on the at the board level, if you have such a thing, at the the executive director, CEO, president has to see the value of these things, because in dealing in my company, as everybody else has said, they just don't have time, and they see this as a hoop that they have to jump through. So if there's some way to teach constantly, right? So, and somehow make it fun. I've used ClickArmor. There was people found it funny, and it's customized and all those kinds of things. And they wanted to do it. Not everybody did it, and it was voluntary during October Security Awareness Month, but the people who did it, and it was like half, I was quite surprised, voluntarily, half of the entire org did it, and they had fun.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for that endorsement, Sid. I appreciate that. And yeah, we love getting feedback in that vein. So appreciate it. I'm going to do our last poll question for the day, and if you can see it, we'll launch this. And the question is, do you think that employees would benefit from being able to do self-assessments of their awareness and defensive skills before being able to, or being formally tested? So the question here really is, is it worth trying to convince senior management or whoever is controlling, the limited time that people have to say, yeah, let's make some time for people to practice and do their own self-assessment so they can build their confidence levels. Is it worth doing that? So love to hear people's thoughts on that. And our final question for discussion today is, how can employees be given more opportunities to practice facing threats in a safe environment? I've shown you a couple of examples of how we do it in ClickArmor, but interested in hearing other people's ideas. How do you do it on a limited budget, say, or with limited graphical or automated resources? Any innovative thoughts on how you can actually get people to practice some of those skills? I'm going to turn it over to Erin.
I'm gonna raise my hand anyways.
Excellent.
I was gonna go back and reiterate the point before, that the opportunity is in how you test people, not in necessarily what you're testing them on. So you can give people more opportunities by giving them more testing in a way that makes them feel like they're part of the scenario, whether they're walking through an incident and talking about it. This is kind of an after the fact learning opportunity, but we're reassessing the way that we do retrospectives. And I've been asked to help lead the retrospectives to kind of take them in a different direction, where we are trying to create that safe environment after something happens. So less of a reactive approach of, here is X, Y, and Z things that we did wrong, creating that safer space, that safer environment for people to feel like they really can process what happened. They can think about different steps to take, and also trying to remove some of the senior leadership out of those retrospectives so that they feel safe to talk about these and have more conversation, more narrative, more storytelling, really think about things in the order that they happened. Those kind of ways that we test, I think, and Thea might be able to speak to it, talk more to how our brains process information is through a narrative, through a consecutive kind of storytelling way. But I know Thea has your hand up, so maybe you'll touch on that.
Yeah, no, you're completely right about that, for sure. And I think the thing is with simulation, the word simulation now is chronically attached to phishing. But actually simulation is the best way to learn anything. Not phishing simulations, that's an entirely separate discussion because it can be culturally very damaging if you're doing it wrong. But like tabletop exercises with people, I would 100% advocate for this. It has so many benefits. So the first thing I would say is that it puts people, as Erin was saying, you need to put them in an environment where they're actually, here are the knowledge that you have, here's the skills that we've given you, look, let's use them. And it gets people engaged and excited about that. So that's one way of doing that. The other thing that it does is it tells you as a security professional what knowledge have they successfully retained that they actually implement in a scenario, right? So there has been a breach. Now here we go. What are you going to do? Right? This kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's really good. I also think it's really proactive rather than reactive, because it sets them up for realistic scenarios before they reach them, which is what proactivity is. And what it also does is it makes people teach themselves. They learn the relevance for themselves. And if you can get people to teach themselves information, so for example, this is why we do interactive things, is because we're trying to get people to teach themselves. We're giving them knowledge and they teach themselves. The retention on that from a neuroscience perspective is so much higher, because your brain goes through a scenario where we were in a threatening situation. This is what I did, and everything was okay. It will store that information for eternity. You do not need to ask it again, because it realizes that you were in danger. And this is one of the issues we have with cybersecurity. It's through the internet. It's not a sensory thing. We don't see it. We don't feel it. We don't have any physical ailments normally from it. So we don't learn that it's dangerous on the level that it actually is. So I think, tabletop exercises would be something that I think is not very common, but it's fairly cheap to implement as well. You can do that. And I know there are some companies out there that actually run those. I can't think of any of the names of them now, but so that would be one of the recommendations I would make.
Amazing. I love that description of the mental versus the physical sensory memories. That's great. Erin.
I also love that. I also love the idea of tabletop exercises and adding on to it to make sure that if you're doing something like that, you are making it a blameless environment. If somebody makes a mistake, the whole point of it being a safe environment is that it's safe, that you don't feel like you did something wrong or you failed. I'm taking a course right now where my first instinct is to go look, after I take a little mini quiz, is to go look at all the incorrect questions that I failed on. And I promise you, I have not failed those questions again, because like Thea said, it sticks. I know now that that's something I need to work on. So again, it's how you test people. It's the environment that you create in it, and making sure that it is a blameless environment and people are encouraged to fail to some extent. You are okay to get it wrong, because that's when you know you're going to get it right, hopefully the second time.
That's when you learn, is when you get it wrong.
That's when you learn. It sticks with you.
Nice. Anybody else have a final thought on that question?
I just like to say that I always tell employees that we want people to report things, and we don't care if it is correct or not correct, and we want people asking questions. And I'm surprised at times that people do ask questions. You think, as I've said before, that it's the security awareness training, etc., is not seen as a priority, but individual staff do come and ask questions and want to know, I got this kind of weird phone call. I got, and that is, each of these things is an opportunity to
yeah, for sure. And that's why I really love the idea of the tabletop exercises, because it has built-in opportunities to discuss questions that come up in the middle of an exercise. So great ideas. Okay. I'm going to just skip to our review of the poll questions now, and I just need to find my proper window, which I usually get wrong, and you guys see all my messy screen, but anyway, hopefully this one works. So the first poll question was, do you feel your organization's awareness program provides sufficient support for employees to learn and practice? I did this question before I sort of did my little spiel, so we'll get sort of a general baseline of how people thought about it. And I think a slight majority said they think that their organization is doing what they need to, or doing a good job on that. So that's interesting. I don't think that is a big surprise. I think a lot of us do feel, as we discussed, there could be more time spent If we had more resources, we would do more. That could be one of the possible reasons as well. The second question, I apologize. I should have set this up as a multiple answer option, but as it was, you only get one chance to vote. So the one with the most votes was phishing, and then SMS, and actually then internal. I didn't actually expect to see that many people respond saying internal messages were things that people needed to practice. So what do you guys feel about this one? I think it's worth a discussion on that.
I'll jump in and
because you just use Slack, you don't use email.
You know, we do use email, just it's not our first point of communication, which honestly is great. I hate trying to read through email chains. It drives me nuts. The comment that I was going to make on this is that in what areas do you feel every area in your organization is going to have a different answer to this question? So I think I've said before in another panel or even today that we're creating tailored training for high-risk departments. We have issues where we've had social engineering attacks via like our ticketing system. That's not going to apply to every other function in my organization.
Right.
But that is a super important thing for us to train on and remind people of red flags and how to deal with those situations. So every single one of these is going to be applicable, maybe more or less so, to a different function in your particular organization. So it's super important to get to know your different functions and do some analysis to see who needs different types of training and go talk with them. I have weekly meetings with, different functions to talk about some of their pain points and how can I make it easier to train your teams on it, timing wise, module wise, content wise. What can I give you to help make this less of a pain point?
That's really amazing. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make, let you make that point by doing a poorly designed question. But, and Thea has a question or a comment.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to follow up on that. I think it's completely true. It's everything. And if you don't have the thing is, if you focus on one thing, so you're constantly training them on phishing attacks, people fill in what you don't say. So what they think then is but it's the only way that they can get me is through phishing attacks. If you only train them on phishing attacks, they make this assumption because they assume that if they could get them anywhere else, you would have told me about that.
Yeah.
So it is really important as well, I think, as well, the individual. So that's going to look different for different people across your department. And it is a lot of work to try and do that kind of personalized training or personalized prioritization of your training. But it is absolutely worth it. And actually, if you don't do that, it can be quite damaging because people can become misinformed by your good information. Simply through their nature.
A little bit ironic, isn't it? But actually, it's a good point because we actually, when we start a new customer with ClickArmor, we do a little bit of a survey, a set of questions to all the employee base, and ask them things like, when was the last time you remember seeing a phishing message? Not a test, but just a real message. And was it over 6 months ago or a month ago or a week ago or in the last few days? And we asked also about voicemail or about phone related scams and things like that, similar frequency. And after we did that, we give them a chance to comment on things, that they think they would like to learn about. It came back that phishing was not the biggest thing. It was social engineering that for this one particular customer that we were working with. So it's a really good point. All right. And the last poll question was, do you think that employees would benefit from being able to do self-assessments of their defensive skills? So most people say yes. I didn't really see that would be a big surprise, but thought it was worth asking. So with that, I'm going to move to our wrap-up part. We'll just go into the summary. And one of the things that I've learned since we started recording this and doing the YouTube shorts, we've had some really viral ones, like the one that Thea did last time on the Adobe downloadable Adobe stuff. So if you have a comment, any of the panelists have a comment on the insights that we've gained here, and you'd like to put it into a 60-second soundbite, then there's a good chance that the AI tool I use will pick it out and score it very highly as something that will make it into a YouTube short. So if you want to take that opportunity, I should have warned you about that earlier, but if you want to just summarize anything that you think are major insights that we've sort of discussed here today, be happy to let you guys talk about that. No major insights. Okay, that's good. Mostly from my point of view, it was the fact that we have these gaps, and we're constrained in resources. We have a mindset at the top that doesn't really support us being able to do as much as we would like, but we still have to do that with whatever resources we have. And I think the tabletop exercise, once again, Thea comes through and gives us a great insight in terms of things that we should be doing, but also loved the insights from Sid and Erin as well. So thank you very much for those things. The next session, which I would like to suggest, we're going to try and change things up a little bit. We've been doing every 2 weeks, a different topic every 2 weeks, and we get good feedback and good turnout. So I don't want to stop doing that, but I think what we might do in the future is every month we will do a guided theme type session like this. And in the interim, the 2 weeks in between, or maybe even weekly, we'll do a less formal session that is live from within the community site. And so it'll be similar. We'll have, we'll coordinate it, we'll moderate it, but it'll be more free form for people to talk about anything that they want to. And we'll hopefully get some discussion going ahead of time in the forum. So with that in mind, do consider joining the CSAF forum. You can do that through the link here on the webpage, or on the PowerPoint slide. So with that, I think we are pretty much at the end. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had some really good content and contributions in the chat. I'm going to try and find a way to highlight some of them when we do the recording and publishing. So we will hopefully see you folks again February 7th, 1 p.m. It's not daylight, it's actually savings time. I made a mistake in that slide. But anyway, hope to see you all again. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.